You're looking all bundled up in our wintry. Are you? Really cold, yeah. Here.
Here.
Chris. Here.
Yes, sir. Here.
I'm here too.
Dick, I'm sorry, Dick.
Jeez. Present, sir.
Yes, ma'am. That was an IQ test, Vic.
Yeah,
That
it was
an
right. This year I'm still awake. Or did I wait?
I'm going to couple of things here. One, Jerry and I were in the Tuesday place. Talked to.
Didn't
I like that
play.
construction.
You were
It's
there. I gotta think that one through.
Patty Dues. Hopefully that place has that, so that's good news.
There's been a lot of stuff on the forum on that recently, with respect to the desirability of doing that.
Excuse me, on Zoom, we can't hear what's going on. Thank you.
Can you hear me now, Karen?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, I think we have to speak into the microphone. I will do that, and mine was turned off. So I just turned mine on. It's got a little button here. Okay, so please speak into your microphones. If you have one of these with a little button, make sure it's on. Okay. No.
Oh, sure.
So the question is going to be which committees are going to be Brown Act and which are not. And I don't know if EPC is going to be a non-Brown Act because of its sort of safety issues. So just as we work through this, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, take it over here and you can come get it. So the committee of committees was working on trying to make this more flexible, and we've had this long discussion. So there's a question of having some committees be Brown Act and some not. The non-Brown Act committees are likely to report to the town manager, not to the councilors. I mean, there's a bunch of things involved to actually make them non-Brown Act. And so there's going to be a question of what committees are going to be non-Brown, even be sort of eligible to be non-Brown Act. And given EPC is a safety committee, it's not clear whether it's going to be eligible to be non-Brown Act. So I think it's still a discussion. There's no decision, but I just wanted to make everybody aware that this wasn't sort of a slam dunk. It was just going down the track.
The EPC, sorry, the council will decide which ones will and which ones won't. Is that the
I mean,
decider?
yes. I mean, ultimately, as I understand it, I don't want to spend too much time on this item, is that committees can request to be dissolved. The council will have to make the decision whether they're dissolved. If they're dissolved, then they can reform themselves under the town manager as a non-Brown Act. So yes, ultimately it's the council's decision. Yeah.
I'd just like to make one point. You, Dale, you framed it as a black and white on both counting as a quorum and voting. And I am certainly aware, because I chaired a committee while I was out of town. There was a past legal opinion that allowed you to vote but not count towards a quorum. So at least town attorneys came to that conclusion at a prior time, and they might want to reconsider that as a medium ground.
Sure, yeah, I don't, and the governor passed a law that made Zoom, because it used to be you could count as Zoom, and then they changed it with the sort of the end of the strict pandemic restrictions. So yeah, at this point, I don't know, but that's a good point.
And my tenure for being out of town, sharing but not counting towards a quorum was pre-Zoom. It was pre-pandemic, and it was by telephone. Yeah.
Good. So definitely worth looking at. Thank you.
Okay, couple of other items here. Many of you may not be aware, I was not aware until somebody emailed me that the town council is looking at an electronic communication policy. Deeply buried in there was something about committees could only email one other committee member at any given time about any given subject, which would kind of defeat the purpose of having subcommittees and destroy the work that we do. So I think the town council will take up this electronic communication policy at another time. I'm told there are quite a few people agitated over this. So if you have an opinion, make your opinion known to your council members and other people that are carrying the flag. I was completely caught unawares by this until somebody emailed me.
So can I just add, I think it's going to be the next meeting, it's going to be discussed. And I think it kind of got wrapped up in the social media and not having two council members jump on social media at the same time. I think everybody acknowledges that as long as it's less than a quorum, that was the goal. So I think that was an unintended writing of that. So I think that's going to get corrected. But please do read it. And if you have comments, get them in. But I think it's going to be at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Nope, I got a couple more. One, we're going to shift our agenda slightly. The town manager will be here at about 8:30, so his comments we're going to move toward the end of the meeting so that he can be here and have a discussion with us. Someone has also emailed me that they are not getting the email with the agenda regularly. If anybody else is not getting that little email that comes directly from the town about the EPC meeting and the agenda, please let me know. I don't know why people aren't getting it, but if you're not getting it, please shoot me an email and I'll make sure that whoever is in charge of that fixes it. And finally, I would like to give a big shout out to Ray, who has almost single-handedly relocated the AM radio and put up the new AM radio antenna. He got minor help from a number of people, but I got to tell you, it has been almost all Ray. So my hat's off, Ray. Thank you very, very much.
It was a team effort.
Okay, I'm closing public comment now. We're going to go on to approval of minutes from last meeting. All in favor? Minutes are approved. Thank you all very much. We're going to move the town status. Now we're on to Selena and Sir.
Use this microphone as well. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Good
Selena.
morning. I'm here representing Woodside Fire as well. My chief is currently conducting promotional interviews for captain. So that's where he is right now. He didn't really have much to report you guys from the last month. Just be aware that this past weekend, we did have a red flag warning. And with that, we have protocols that we follow. And so we had brought in extra staff to staff our water tender. So we were, we were all hands on deck for the weekend. Fortunately, after discussion with our upcoming Fire Marshal, Kim Giuliacci, we were discussing on how the moisture level is still pretty good here in the area. So we were ready, but we weren't as concerned as last year's red flag warnings. For the CERT and ready side, the only things I really wanted to mention is we finally finished our second CERT training, and I could not have done this without all the volunteers that volunteered to help teach the classes. Otherwise, I don't have any instructors other than myself. As well, on the last day, we had volunteers come in and help people retaking the last day, so refreshing their skills, and volunteers from the community. We had young men from the Young Men's Service League, and we had some parents from them, and we had scouts also. So it was really great to see this whole community kind of coming together to make sure that this class is put on. And so I just want to say thank you to that. We are going to be scheduling next year's classes on Thursday, or today, actually. Today is our CERT committee meeting at 5 p.m. So we're going to be putting out next year's class schedule after this. We want to make sure that nobody is wondering when we're going to have training, not just CERT training, but radio communications, more advanced training, and whatever else we have. We just want to get it on the calendar so people can start locking in those dates. Also, I just put out a notification. I don't know if you guys saw about a special training we're providing here in the community. It's called Per 334, and that's when disaster strikes. And it's actually put on from, let's see, the Texas A&M Engineering Extension Service. This is a great internationally recognized emergency response training program. And I found them at the CERT conference, and the lady I talked to, she was extremely friendly. They're providing the service for free. They're bringing all the materials. They're teaching it. It's a day and a half, and it's going to be on January 19th and 20th. January 19th is a Friday. It'll be half day. So it'll go from 6 to 9, I believe. And then Saturday will be an all day event.
Where will that be?
It'll be at Fire Station 19. And we need to fill those slots. I think we maybe only put in for 24 because that's all the room can hold. There's a lot of hands-on skills, practical skills, but we want to fill those spots as well too. This isn't necessarily for people that this isn't for first responders. This is for more the ready side. So residents that just want to know exactly what to do right after a disaster strikes to help their family and friends in the immediate area. So this actually would be a great stepping stone if you don't have the time to commit to CERT training right now, to take this class, and then from there move on to CERT if you so wish. So if you haven't seen that registration, go onto the PV forum or on our ready groups.io account and sign up.
Is that useful as a refresher too, or is it really meant for?
It's a totally different curriculum. I haven't even gone through it. It was actually brought to my attention by Lynn Eisberg, and she went through it at the conference, and she just was like so amazed by how well the class was put on and the quality of the instructors. So I went out of my way to get this scheduled, and it's been in the making for several months now. So it's just been announced. And that's really all I have. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
Wait, One
Oh,
question, and you may turn my mic on.
Oh, I think it's on, yeah.
It's on, it's on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm working on the date. 2-3 days ago, walking along the coast, a huge smoke plume down near Pescadero. It lasted maybe 45 minutes. Any idea?
Not off the top of my head. I know they've been doing a lot of controlled burns around the area, but I hadn't heard of anything out on the coast.
Scared me. I'll show you a picture.
I
of
bet
it
it was like when they had the one over in the area not too long ago, and it was wafting onto 280. Yeah, not sure.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Selena. Appreciate it. Okay. We are now on item number 7, evacuation plan status. And last month, if you remember, we thought the mayor was going to show up and he did not. So we are still kind of in a holding pattern. As far as the evacuation plan, I guess, you know, specifically, we've got Craig here. We've got some specific questions. One of those is what actually happened at the town council meeting. The minutes say it was just received. There was something that Mary Hufty put out saying it was accepted. So I don't know where we actually are from a legal standpoint. The second specific question, which we've asked a couple of times, is what from the town attorney's perspective, prevents the town council from actually adopting the evacuation plan, I think is a big question. And then the following question is, what does the town council want us to do?
So I'm just getting back from vacation. Did you talk to the mayor
No,
after the last meeting? Okay, so there's been no communication.
none.
Okay, so then I will follow up. So generally, I can answer this stuff, but I'll try to follow up in detail. And if I see that some of them were in the minutes from last time, but
Yeah.
it seemed like you had more questions. So maybe you can write them all down. Then I'll try to get answers to the ones that I can. So generally, I think so it was received, meaning that the council saw it, read it. I need to talk to Jeff because I thought he was going to meet with you guys. So I'll follow up and see what the next step is. In terms of approving it, I think the concern from the attorney was it had a lot of other agency responsibilities in it, which aren't the council's responsibility for approving.
But those are just like the EOP has lots of other agencies in it too.
So I don't want to get into debate. I was just trying to tell you that was my understanding of what I heard from the attorney. So I'm happy to take the list of questions and look at them and talk to Jeff and see if we can get some answers and move forward on it. Because I mean, that's what we want. We did publish it as we discussed. That was the main ask that we had when we started, was that we get this out there. So I think we've made progress on that. So at the next meeting, we can talk more about it, but I just don't have any more information right now. Like I said, I thought Jeff was going to be here last time.
Okay, Rob? Any questions?
My only comment is that we would like to try to finalize this. There are a lot of things that people would like to be included in this as a Rev 2, but we're kind of in no man's land right now. We just don't know what to do.
Okay. Well, like I said, I can talk to Jeff this week. I'm back in town, so I can try to move that stuff forward. I would say that people could start working on whatever they think Rev 2 is. I mean, there's always draft stuff to do. So
Yeah, the thing is that we really don't know what they're asking for. And so there's no sense for us to continue on something where this one might, what do they want here? So we're eager to try to finish, and there are a lot of other people that want things included for a second Rev, but it doesn't make sense to start on that until we finish this one and understand what the attorney thinks is wrong. And, you know, I've had the fire department sent me Austin's evacuation plan, which is almost a duplicate of ours. It's the same template. I've read through it, and so we're just scratching our heads. We just want to help. We want to move forward. Okay.
good, got it.
And so the reason I mentioned Austin's is that Austin's has very similar asks for other agencies. That's been approved for Austin, Texas.
Okay, great. So I mean, that's any information you have that you can give me, that's helpful.
Randy?
Yes, I didn't make the town council meeting, but I listened to the YouTube, and it came up that the language of adopt an evacuation plan was in one of the directives of, I think, the 9 points.
Randy, please speak into the microphone.
Yes, okay, so it came up that the exact language adopt an evacuation plan was in one of the major directives and goals documents. So if you could relay for us what that was. And you know, I was you know, hearing that made it even more confusing why this wasn't addressed early on in this process, because you, as our liaison, knew we were working on this plan. We then shared a draft for the special meeting in June, and we held a special meeting. We were trying to expedite the process, and never throughout any of that was there expressed any legal concern about adopt an evacuation plan. And finding out that it was actually directed to do that exact thing, it just reminded me, no, I'm not crazy. And I think you owe us an explanation about this, and to continue to have yet another meeting. It's November where we get no explanation about this. And in fact, there's now we are owed an explanation as to why it was such a point of conflict that we were asking for the legal rationale around this. And so this is, I continue to see what's happened here is just very and really deeply problematic from a process perspective. And as our council liaison and as the person who's driven this since, I want to ask you again for an explanation about this.
So as I said, my suggestion would be write all these down so I can come back to you with answers. I feel that it's piecemeal. Like I keep getting different questions and they're slightly different variations. I'm happy to sort of try to get to the bottom of this stuff. I think we all agree the evacuation plan is important. But that's, I think where it stands right now. Yeah.
Craig, it seems like what the committee would like is sort of a projected approval date and what steps need to be done in order for you to go from where we are now to that date. So we can throw out all kinds of questions. I don't think that actually solves the problem. The problem is everyone wants an approved evacuation plan. So if somebody needs to kind of throw a stake out in the ground somewhere and say it's going to be June or whatever, and here are the 5 things that have to happen first in order for the council to vote and approve it. And if you could then get that back to us, I think that would be more helpful.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. Like I said, I thought Jeff was going to be here at the last meeting, so I need to follow up, and I assumed you guys had followed up with him. So it seems like that's the next step. Is I got to talk to the mayor. So
Okay, we'll send you a list of.
yeah, great.
Okay. On to number 8, AM relocation status. Ray?
AM relocation status, as was reported earlier, the town, Howard, thank you, Howard. Good morning. Got a scissor lift, and Stuart Young and Ron Mellinson and Dale, mostly Stuart in the morning, helped me get that in place. Just it took an hour to figure out how to drive the darn thing, but we got it there and get it on level ground. We had to put all kinds of wood things to make it level so it would go up high enough. I must say 16 feet in the air is, I'm usually okay with that sort of stuff. But I wasn't this time. Anyway, and then the fire department, so we got the mounts all in, the fire department showed up and I've got photographs of it, but they got the antenna down, the old antenna down, the new antenna up. We wired it up, got it close to electrically all set up, and it's on, it's live. It needs some tuning. There's some fine tuning we have to do, but that was expected. But by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was so exhausted, I just didn't have time to finish. So I'll find some time this month to finish it. So we're operating at about 8 watts because the antenna is not perfect and I don't want to drive the radio too hard. I did the measurements, the RF measurements, 1 mile in the circumference, and we're well within the limits of the high performance antenna that the FCC sets. Our license is still in the works, the bureaucracy of the FCC, no anticipated problems. And then finally, I put out an all points bulletin to folks, and Craig and others, Rob, drove around, and I would say anecdotally, unless we could get some sort of system, we have much better coverage than I expected from this location. So the antenna did what it was supposed to do. It's given us better coverage from this location into places, by the way, that was always pretty dark on the other side of Westridge, on the Ladera side of that hill. We're actually hearing the AM radio. I've not been up in some of the valleys up in Los Trancos area, but I'll do that and we'll cover it. But it's great at my house. Dale, you reported it was great at your house. Yeah. So I'm pleased. There's some fine tuning, but we're alive and well. The other thing, it's interesting, we did this work on a Wednesday. That's the day the IT people come and do the work, whatever. We still do not have access to the AM radio from outside town hall. So any changes have to happen live there. That's just until they get, I don't know, anyway, I'm not in charge of that schedule. I've talked to the IT guy twice personally. I know who he is. He's a ham, by the way. We'll get it all wrapped up here. And on the other good news front, and everybody noticed this, thank you for, when you listen, you notice the audio quality of Carrie's voice is not perfect and nobody's is. And there's all kinds of post-processing technology you can do to a recording. And we have the software, but it's kind of a hassle. You got to record it and do a bunch of stuff. Turns out our vendor, I talked to our vendor if there was any way to do that in an easier way. They actually have a free service. So you record your message, you send it to them, it's auto picked up and sent right back to you post-process, so that you clip the highs, bring up the lows, and you get a much more higher fidelity voice. So I'm going to train Carrie to do that. That's wonderful, actually.
Yeah.
Because Rob, you noticed that mostly about the quality of the voice. So anyway, progress.
Great.
And again, thanks to the fire department. I think they had a lot of fun. Were they yucking it up pretty good yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, any questions? No. We can take that off the agenda. After a year.
Oh, yeah, maybe we'll leave it on just for old time's sake. Great. Thank you very much, Ray. And for those here in the audience, I'd like to welcome Sharif Etman, who is our town manager this year. And I think we're going to go ahead and go right to his part of the agenda. So welcome, Sharif. And if you've seen our agenda, we have a few questions, one of which ties into Ray's question on the modification of the town land. Are you aware of our agenda and the questions? Oh, no, everybody who comes to our meeting gets to speak.
Good morning, Sharif Etman, Town Manager. Thank you for inviting me today. Thank you for your time and your efforts and everything you do. Apologies for running late. I do drop off 2 kiddos in the morning, so thank you for allowing the time to come in. And one of my agenda items, as you all may know, is meeting with all the chairs of the committee meetings and getting to know your roles and responsibilities and your priorities and different pieces. And public apology to Dale yesterday. We had some mix up with the schedule and with my kiddos at home, so we'll reschedule that meeting. I'm here to listen today. I don't have answers necessarily to your questions. I want to hear your questions, hear from you directly, your thoughts, your concerns, your questions, and I will certainly take them back and then bring that back to your next meeting, hopefully, if I'm able to on some of those pieces. But I understand there's been questions, concerns, frustration, and different pieces. And so I want to hear directly from the group, from the committee, exactly what you need from me as your new town manager. And so I'm not going to pretend like I understand everything, but I will have hopefully some answers for you and get some significant progress and movement in many of the things that you need to get done. So let me know what you'd like to accomplish today, what your thoughts are. And
okay, well, we've got a fairly long ongoing agenda. I mean, the first one is modification of the land, which Ray mentioned briefly with your IT people so that we can access the AM radio remotely. As you may be aware, the only way to update the message on the AM radio right now is with a thumb drive. You have to manually do it on your computer, take it over physically and plug it into the AM radio.
yeah.
And in an emergency in the middle of the night, that's going to add significant time.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've had that even when the radio was at town hall, we had that land set up so we could access it remotely and change the message. And I don't know what the issue is. This has been on the to-do list for about almost a year, Ray.
Yeah. So first priorities, I can set up a meeting with Stepford, our IT provider, with whoever you choose to be on that. And we can get that set up pretty quickly, right? So
If you would just tell him to do it,
Okay.
because I already talked to him twice. He knows we've gone through it. It's a simple
Okay.
5-minute fix.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
really.
We'll do.
Okay. So all you have to do is
Yeah,
Okay,
sounds
just-
good. We don't, no need to complicate it. If it's as simple as that, I will
tell him to do it.
take care of that.
Okay. I think the second item on our agenda, which has also been well over a year, is to get an internet backup. And this committee spent a fair amount of time looking at solutions, and our recommendation is Starlink. And Starlink is not going to be affected by power. It's not going to be affected by anything else. Because again, you know, the town hall uses Comcast. Comcast goes down fairly frequently. And in the overall scheme of things, a Starlink subscription would be, you know, fairly insignificant. And I'm sure your IT guys can put a proper load balancer or link in, just like I've got at my house, so that when something goes down, we immediately go to Starlink. And I think that's important for the town being able to receive emails, but more importantly, actually, if there's a major power outage or Comcast outage, we could still update the AM radio through that link. And if you're not aware, the AM radio also has its own power backup in addition to the generator backup that town hall has. So even when the generator goes off, we've got another, 12 hours, Ray, approximately, maybe a little more, before the AM radio would lose power.
Yeah,
So
for sure. This is a priority that was brought to my attention by Corey Stalker, our assistant town manager. So it's on her radar. She has been waiting for a direction on that. I understand there's been discussion with Howard as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm prepared to come back the next meeting. I'll give you an update of exactly where we stand, because that is a priority to get that done and finished, basically, not to come back saying we're going to do it. So within the next month or two, I think this will be completed.
great.
And I have seen this. I brought this. It's on my phone. I didn't want to bring out the phone on
Okay.
the agenda, but thank you for the hard copy.
Okay. The next one, this committee also this year approved a protocol for updating the AM radio message. And all of that goes through you. Just so you
Yes,
were
it
aware.
does. Yeah, I learned that recently. Yes.
So the decision on when and where, how to update the AM radio is your decision. This committee will facilitate that. Carrie has been trained, Ray has been trained, Chris has, assuming we can get, you know, internet access, we can update the message remotely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we gave you a list of things where we suggested that the AM radio should be updated.
Yeah. So for this piece, it's a matter of, I will review it, make a decision, and we'll get that taken care of.
Okay, great. And the last item on here is sort of an open-ended thing about how you would like to proceed with the emergency operations plan. The emergency operations plan for the town is sadly out of date. And at this point, non-functional, I guess, would be the polite word of saying it. So I guess, again, this is your jurisdiction about how you would like to proceed. A prior administration made the decision to go to a virtual EOC. This committee was not particularly supportive of that, but that was not our decision.
Yeah, it's also part of the San Mateo County initiative to have a virtual EOC. So there's nuances there, and obviously there are pros and cons to that. And so we still want to, we obviously need our EOC plan. We need a VEOC plan, a VOC, which I learned recently. So
Yeah, just for your reference, members of this committee and CERT and so on had a discussion with the virtual EOC people, and there was no external communication. In other words, everybody in the virtual EOC room could talk to each other, but they couldn't talk to anybody else. They couldn't talk to CERT. They couldn't talk to the volunteers, which of course is kind of an issue.
right. Yeah, so obviously priority for me diving into EOC, the VOC plan, the different pieces, working with you all on what we need to do. I'm also very adamant and passionate about training our staff and retraining our staff to make sure that we know exactly what's happening because of all the turnover and the different pieces that we've had. So we'll be focusing on EOC training as well in the next month. Actually, in this month, we're in November already. So I'll be more than happy to report out next time and give you an update of where we stand and what the plan is basically moving forward, because this needs to happen. I've been trained with the county, fortunately, on EOC. I have a couple of certificates that I need to get updated on, but I was a section chief for the San Bruno fire. I worked the tsunami for the Japan earthquake, those different pieces. So I bring some perspective I'd like to bring here as well. And so I'd love to dive in and get that done. But emergency operations, EOC, VOC, all that preparedness, it's a huge priority for me as we move forward. So this is the one where I don't have the magic answer today, but I look forward to reestablishing that. Most importantly, I think reestablishing relationships, reestablishing communication, not only internally and with town of Portola Valley, but also with the community and the fire district as well. So I'm here to help. I'm here to listen, and I am diving into EOC as it's a high priority for me and for all of us, obviously.
Okay, that is all on our agenda. Do you have anything on yours?
Can I add something?
Sure, go ahead, Vic.
I just want to alert you to, because I can imagine what your agenda looks like right now. But there has been pending for some time a rankings that's been put up as a result of an emergency report that came out from outside expert, and rankings were actually set up on what priorities that should be established. The 13 items that came out of that report, that's been on hold, understandably, because of shortage of staff. And I just want you to be aware of that. And hopefully, once you get settled in and the priorities are set, that we can open up that dialogue, because there are action items that needed to be coordinated with our staff with respect to those rankings over a period of time. And I feel obligated, based upon our work on this committee, to report back to the town council sometime in the next few months about where we are in implementing those rankings. It's been de facto moving forward, but it's definitely been put on hold.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I was not aware of the
I'll-
ranking,
I'll
so
try
take a
to
look at
follow
that.
up with you about that.
As I get, reestablish some of our relationships and get to know you all and work on our priorities and different pieces. One of the things that I have is at the town picnic, I asked the fire protection district when they came, they had their hose out there for the kids, they were going out in the field. And so I have a picture of me drinking from the fire hose, right? And so every once in a while, I'll show you that picture, but emergency preparedness, doesn't get more important than that. And so I'm here, I'm committed to helping and looking forward to what I can do as town manager, reestablishing those different pieces. So just want to say thank you for all the work that you do and the important work that you do. And we're so small as a town, we're small as staff, we can't do it on our own, right? We need you. So thank you.
Do you have a ham license?
I don't, but there was talks of me getting a ham license when I was at the county. And so.
Here you had a question.
Yeah, just one, excuse me, big picture item. We have worked in this committee to try and figure out a way to get all of our neighborhoods emergency prepared, fire-wise community, emergency, and so on. And we are struggling to get real traction. There are certainly some progress, but it's certainly very slow. If we had a really, 8-point-something earthquake tomorrow, the vast majority of neighborhoods would not be organized to actually deal with it. So if you have a free moment, which you probably don't, I would hope that you'd think about how you could support that, how the council could support that, and help people in the community understand that it's a significant priority to be part of an organized community, an organized neighborhood. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We'll find time. We'll make time to do that.
Okay. So you're off the hook until.
All right.
Next
Until
meeting.
next meeting.
Yes.
No, but thank you. Some of these issues I know have been pending for quite some time. Some of them are easy. Other parts are a little more complicated, but we'll get them done and completed. We'll come back to you. And if there's something that I can't get done or get completed, I will tell you and I will mention that. So there are no surprises. We'll continue to communicate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, now we are on to item number 9. And this committee has been following this. This is the request by Epic for their annual contribution, which was denied by the town council. And in your packet, you have the letter that Selena very, very nicely wrote to the town council, delineating their support for safety and emergency preparedness throughout the district. And hopefully, and we're going to throw this also to our liaison, that the town council will take up the contribution to CERT in the very near future.
So I received the letter. Thank you. So I'll talk with Jeff and the town manager and we'll see what we can do to move forward.
Great. Thank you. And I would recommend that this committee, if and when we see it on the town council agenda, shoot an email or call your favorite town council member and ask for their support on this item. And just a reminder, Woodside upped their contribution to $10,000 this year, 15. Whoa.
Why
So-
you're 20?
So that's just a sign. Thank you, Selena. Okay, on, oh, certainly.
The only thing I wanted to add is that I spoke with Kevin, the town manager at Woodside, and he stated that this contribution is actually just part of their standard budget. So moving forward, I know we had that discussion on how we can make this easier,
Yeah.
but let's just try to look at that if that's, to just make it simpler so there's not an issue like this again.
Thank you. Great suggestion. Okay, on to number 10. And this one is just a continuing on. Ray wrote the great article. I think, have we had that posted to the town website? Are we aware? Is anybody aware? I will follow up and see if we can get that posted to the town website. Other than that, I think we're just going to continue to carry this item to make sure people are aware of all the emergency communications we have in town. I think it's very important. On to item number 11.
I can claim I was out of country most of the last month, so no great progress. But since Sharif is here, I would just let him know that in past years, this was handled by the town staff. They would contact all the wireless carriers to determine whether they had checked and determined that their battery backup was alive and well. I don't even mind making the contact. The question is, I don't want to drive around town trying to find a Comcast guy with a truck and ask him whether he can check the battery. So if you have a Rolodex that has contact information, I don't mind doing the work. It's trying to figure out who to contact. So that help would be appreciated.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerry. And now we're on to item number 12, and there was a fairly extensive report that Craig put together on AM radio signs. I'm going to turn it over to Craig.
Oh, okay. So in your packet, what I did is put together the report so that you guys can look at it. I think cutting right to the chase, if you will, if we could today determine, if possible, what kind of sign and where to put it, that would be great. And the idea is, it's only back up a little bit my idea, and I'm asking for guidance from the council, is to put together a recommendation for what kind of sign, what it should look like, where it should go, and so forth, and send that to town council, because I would think that that would be the next step then. And I think, so I'm kind of picking up from where Ray left off of quite some time ago. And I don't know that I've actually even pushed it that much further than making a recommendation to town council. But I think internally, maybe we could come up with, okay, what do you think these signs should look like? And I can give you some background about that. So succinctly, what they come to is kind of a low level, and then more and more advanced, if you will. And the low level would be putting, a sign where we already have signs, and that would include putting a sign where we have already a wood sign for Portola Valley and so forth. And then elevating that to all the way to the point of actually putting in new signs and posts and signs and so forth. I can tell you what my personal, I think where it kind of comes down to, I think the easiest and probably the most effective way is to put a rider on existing signs, and a rider is just nothing more than a sign below another sign. And what I've been trying to do to find out whether we can even do that is just more or less a web search and a few phone calls. I did reach out to Caltrans because I thought maybe they had some responsibility. It was like talking to a black hole for a little while until I called them, and they responded within a few hours, and they said, "Well, we don't have any highway signs in all of Portola Valley, so talk to your town about what about whether you can put a rider on your speed limit signs."
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, fine. With that being said, and I know I'm jumping around here quite a bit, I think the other thing that makes sense, and I've heard that the town has potentially a sign expert who could possibly advise about, well, do we want to put a rider? Can we put a rider, on the speed limit signs? So that's kind of all where it stands. I don't know if we're in a position to go through everything today and make a recommendation. I can do that, interim between meetings, and we can get something to town. I think that's the next step. So at this point, after blathering for far too long, I'm open to suggestions and how to move this thing forward.
My personal comment here is we've been having this for a long time. I would just assume the committee come to a conclusion today and pass it off. And we can ask our liaison whether they would like something to the town council. Then the town council can figure out who it goes to, or whether this goes to the town manager, maybe to both. But I think we should open the discussion and get people's ideas, and hopefully in a relatively short period of time, we can come to a consensus about what we would like to do. So, Chris, go ahead.
I'm thinking just from a practical point of view and the amount of time we have, maybe my suggestion might be a short discussion, and then, I don't know, without violating the Brown Act, somehow have people rank order vote them. Not in this meeting. It seems like trying to choose from 8 options there with 10 people or something like that. But I don't know what the math is, but it sounds like it could take a long time.
Maybe we can cut it down. Do we have let me ask first. How many would prefer a brownish sign versus a blue-white sign? You want a brownish sign? Brown? How many want 3? How many want a blue-white sign? One, two.
Talking about adding to the town of Portola Valley sign.
No, I'm just asking on the color, on either a blue-white sign or a brownish bluish sign. Yeah, and we'll go to mounting next. I'm just trying to get a sense of the committee of what.
Let me give you a little bit of background between the different color signs, by the way. So I did talk to another person about that, and then they did think that the blue-white sign brings a lot more attention. So the blue and white sign brings a lot more attention, gets a lot more attention, because it's kind of a standard color. Don't want to sway the voting necessarily.
Okay, let's go back. Brown sign. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and how many want a blue-white sign? It's on its own. 4 for on its own. Okay, who wants a standalone sign versus how many want attached to another sign? Standalone, attached to another sign. Okay, so we've eliminated all the standalones. Okay, now attached to another sign, who would prefer it go on a a speed limit sign
Versus what?
versus the town limit sign or a neighborhood watch sign. So, okay, how many would prefer it go on the neighborhood watch sign?
Of which there's only two, is that correct?
I think there may be three. I think they're at all entrances of the town. There's one on Arrest there, there's one on Alpine, and there's one on Portola. Okay, so that's that. And how many then want a brown sign on the neighborhood watch sign? This is brown versus blue and white. I'm just trying to finalize. So we have
Brown, right?
brown on the neighborhood watch. Oh, well, we made our own. We made our own.
You know, I think this is somewhat unscientific what we're
It's brown.
doing
On the
here.
photo here, it's brown.
Dale, is there a URL that has the emergency info as well? Like that has the AM radio message? Because it seems like the AM radio would be the backup for for at least a significant amount of.
Yeah, we do. There is a URL. It's streaming online.
Well, I mean, with the print version. I mean, what I would prefer to be able to do is click I would put the link as a home button on my phone and click it and then see the whole message. Because I mean, what really one of the most important things we want to know is like, is an evacuation route blocked? You know, if there's a really urgent emergency.
It doesn't come out in written format. It does come out. I've got it on my phone. If I push one of my links, it'll bring up the AM radio.
Well, I would propose that we consider this and suggest it and evaluate it and because I think it could be a really effective way to get some of the most critical information to people.
That's off topic. We can bring that up for later. Let's come back to appears to me the consensus is a brown and white AM radio sign on the neighborhood watch sign. How many people support that option as a recommendation of this committee? Well, you can bring up your own, but how many people like that idea? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As opposed to the blue. He wants the blue. I would like the blue, but the consensus of the committee. Yeah, would be, so I think, Craig, if you could write something up in a memo form, with all the background, because that's really useful when we send it on.
Okay.
Then bring that in a memo form to the next committee meeting. We will formally vote on it and forward it to the town manager, the town council, and then they can forward it on probably to another committee.
Okay, it does sound like there's probably a ranking as well, correct? Because it sounds like there's a little bit of, okay, I can do that. Or do the best I can at that.
No, you'll do a great job.
Yeah, so when this came up before, what was discussed is this is going to go to ASCC. So having it, once you guys eliminate, basically narrow it down to either one or a small number of possibilities. I think what you're looking for is effectively the equivalent of a staff report that can go to ASCC. And that's basically where you should be headed.
We don't write staff reports.
No, but I'm saying the information. In other words, if you want to get this to move forward, you need to sort of set it up roughly in that format. You're not going to write the final staff report, but if you just say, oh, here's a bunch of pictures of stuff we want, then it'll happen eventually, but it's going to take longer. Whereas if it's more in the context of a staff report so they can move it along quickly to ASCC, I think that would expedite your goal of getting it done.
Well, that's why I'm suggesting you write a memo with this background information.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, just suggesting if you look at what staff reports look like, that would be a good form for the memo to sort of roughly follow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Chris?
I would suggest, since this is a psychology issue, but you're sending something on to another committee to be voted on and approved and then ultimately to the town council. People like to have choices as opposed to being told, here is the choice, you can vote yes or no. But then the last question, what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
Give them a few options and give them our preference, but give them a few options.
That's fine.
If I could just add, I think it's fine to say there's a consensus that we want to have a brown sign on a neighborhood watch. That's 3 signs, but it doesn't mean that's the only thing we can do. We can also have other signs. I wonder if we could even consider talking with some of the commercial properties like Roberts. Could you have a sign on your property with AM radio? The various, even the town center. Wouldn't we want to have a sign in the town center? So I think we shouldn't just limit ourselves to 3 signs that are brown that come in, when people are probably not paying all that much attention, but rather what's in the town while they're here when an emergency actually happens. So just my thought.
It's a great idea. Okay, thank you all. Now we are on to the Hawthorne's parking plan. And Craig, this is also you. You've attended more of those meetings. I managed to attend one.
Yeah. I think I could summarize it as there's been a lot of discussion around the Hawthorne's development, particularly about the parking. My impression was that they have not decided at all about the number or the location of the parking. So, and they realize that the number of slots is a very sensitive issue, and it drives a lot of things about the Hawthorne's development, including access and so forth. So it's not a done deal by any stretch. They are using the number 50 as kind of a baseline, but they haven't said one way or the other, whether it's going to be 50 or 100 or 20. So that's about as much as I can tell you about the parking sizes and so forth.
Okay. Do we have any public comments? I see Karen Vatra, your hand is up. Go ahead, Karen.
I do agree with Craig on that. Nothing has been formally decided, but I pretty much clearly felt the consensus in our last meeting was that we chose a combination of parking based upon the professionals' input, and we chose a parking lot off of Alpine using the Hawthorne's entrance, one across from Roberts, that with kind of a long driveway, so it'd be definitely shielded from Alpine. Unfortunately, it does require an Alpine entrance, but it's a little bit safer in that it's closer to Roberts instead of being at a higher speed for bicycles. And then there is an opportunity, an easy opportunity in the future if 50 spots aren't enough to put some overflow parking, and also an opportunity to put a little bit of ADA spot. So although it's not final, I'm pretty much convinced that the POG as a whole is going to make that recommendation to the PNR group, which goes to their board, et cetera, and comes back to the town. But no, it's not final, but I think there's pretty good consensus, and that's where we're going. Thank you.
Thank you. I did remember hearing something about them wanting or needing a new traffic study, and I don't know where that is.
I'd have to review my notes about where that is. I thought there was a little bit of discussion about, well, yes, actually quite a bit of agreement that there should be an additional, an updated traffic study, but it was unclear, at least to me, about who's responsible for that. So.
Okay. We will keep monitoring this as it gets closer. There's some significant dates, and I think you can look on the website. There's going to be another tour and then a final meeting. Is that correct, Craig?
I don't recall about the tour, but there's many more meetings.
Many more meetings. Okay. For those of you who want to follow along on that, please get involved, give them their impression. The little bit of the meeting I saw that the POG group, the working group, was really trying to work with community input on this. within the constraints they had, of course. Okay, now on the last one, there's a quick item number 14. I put a quick memo in about a wildfire tabletop that took place on October 18th. And Craig and Rob and I were there. It was well attended. It was over 30 fire professionals. And they had 2 software simulators, one from Flame Mapper, which knowing the topography, the vegetation, the structures and so on, could simulate what happens as a fire moves across the landscape. And the other one with Ladris, which is a traffic evacuation modeling software. And they had them working in concert. They would stop every little bit and then have the first responders go away and say, okay, what are we gonna do and who's doing what? And then they move the simulation a little bit farther, and then the first responders would get together and decide what they were gonna do again. So it was actually really instructive. The frightening part for me, and I put them in there to show you how fast that fire would move. The structure was a fire starting at 8 in the morning, right along Alpine Golden Oak. And, you know, in less than 6 hours, I think it was 5.5 hours, the fire reached Jasper Ridge. So essentially all of West Ridge was engulfed in flame. And at that point, it even started to jump over the other way, even though the wind was coming from the southwest. It started to jump over the other direction and move across Alpine Road toward the open space in that direction. So it was really enlightening. It also showed that the congestion on both Alpine and Portola Road was extremely congested at 2 hours. And you know, they and the first responders called for a full evacuation of almost all of central Portola Valley at 1 hour. 1 hour. So it was very instructive. I think there were a lot of people who learned things from it, and hopefully the town manager was there, so he got to see firsthand how destructive these procedures are.
Where was the fire starting?
Roughly at the corner of Golden Oak and Alpine,
And the wind came from
the south.
south?
Yes, southeast at 17 miles an hour. I think it was between the two.
It was a chain drag on a truck on Alpine Road.
As,
But Vic's house was going to be.
as I read the report,
Very comforting. Very appreciate that.
the report's based on the fact that the first responders fire department did not do anything during that period of time.
Yeah, this was unmitigated. So you know that it would not go this far because CAL FIRE was there and they said, you know, they would have tankers in the air, you know, almost immediately, and probably within 40 minutes, they could be dropping their first loads. But for the example, it was unmitigated. So in other words, if there were multiple fires going off in this area and we couldn't get any help, because the first responders, and this is always a challenge, people don't understand the first responders, their first responsibility is to get people out. And so if the people are still in, they aren't fighting any fires, they're working to get people out of the area. And so sometimes it takes time to get the people out of the area before they can set up their lines. Randy?
Dale, so the simulation was the fire started at 8 a.m. and then an evacuation order was issued within an hour.
Yeah.
So if this situation happened, this would result in both of the PVSD schools and Priory going into shelter in place, correct? Was that discussed? Was that a part of it?
No.
Okay.
We didn't
This-
discuss that.
I bring this up because I think it's such a serious issue in the town, and it's the reason why I got involved in the evacuation work. And it's, you know, when you hear this sort of urgency and this strident indignation in my voice about the situation and the stalling with Craig and the town council, that's why. I shared with a couple who also has 2 kids in the school system on Saturday night because it was a red flag day. I spent the morning packing go bags and actually had a lot of insights. And it was a useful exercise. I think it would be helpful to share the wisdom that y'all have about, and especially Selena about go bags. I actually packed a go backpack and I had a lot of thoughts about it and I took some notes. But I shared with this couple that, you know, this situation at the school shelter in place, and almost no parents know this in the school system. And even after discussing for a minute, the mother said, "Wait a second, we're supposed to evacuate and leave our kids in school? No way! What are you talking about?" And this was after, you know, discussing shelter in place. It's just it really takes a lot to explain this, and when it hits what this really means, parents go through a lot of thoughts. I went through a lot of thoughts when I learned about, well, I'll go anyway and get my kid. And like, you know, it's like they won't stop me. And there's all these thoughts. So look, we've got through fire season, probably, you know, but if something had happened this year, if we had a fire, and this is why we put the major effort in to get this evacuation report done. I used staff time of some people who work for me, and I made sacrifices for time with my family and my kids to get this done. As Rob can share with you, that was a difficult thing for me personally, and prioritizing that work and then seeing what's happened with it. And then also now knowing what I know about the situation and the risk and the serious work that needs to be done. It's, I you know, I guess here at the end of this meeting, I just want to make an appeal again to address the group problems that are preventing, like, really progress that can save lives, because there's so much knowledge this committee has. It's been painful for me to watch since I joined this committee in February, the challenges of getting good work done. And this is good, important, serious work done by serious people over years. And so just getting the stonewalling and the runaround, I'm sorry, Craig, frankly, we got again today, it's just beyond disappointing.
Thank you, Randy.
So one thing I'm curious is, what's the school district doing right now? Because Rob, I know you've been working with them for a while.
There was supposed to be a rollout of a plan at both Corte Madera and Ormondale, a major rollout that explained the different tiers, especially what would happen in a red flag warning, equivalent to a snow day.
Right.
And I don't know what happened to that rollout. It didn't happen.
Because I think for the parents, I mean, school's the primary. I mean, I think that, you know, the council can look at this thing, but the school is going to be the primary person, you know, the group to push with the parents, because the parents, I mean, aren't going to care what the council says. They're going to care what the school district says, and they're their own entity.
There was a joint rollout that was going to be done by the schools and Woodside Fire, including their fire engines on site. There was a whole process where kids would take information home, and there was going to be a raffle if the parents filled it out that the kids could win, I forget what. And I don't know what happened. Selena, do you know? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not putting me on the spot at all. We're still working with the Portola Valley School District. We have in-classroom training coming up with the second and third graders of the school. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that the school district has faced, is just getting the parents to read a document, right? Even if it's just look at this one graph and understand what this means. And so we are trying to figure out different routes to do that. And you had mentioned exactly what one of our plans was. We're also, the fire marshal, Kim and myself will be attending a morning session at one of the schools where the parents come through, where we'll be talking about evacuation and wildfire safety. So this is still a process we're working on, trying to get in there.
I got you, but I think one of the most important things that Craig has brought up is that, and what Randy brought up, thanks, Randy, is the parents, needs to happen every year. The parents need to understand what those different levels are, what the fire department will be doing, what their responsibilities are. And they need to have a chance to talk, to object, to say, why do we have to do this? So that there can be a mutual education that goes back and forth. That a level of trust comes up and exists between the fire department, the sheriff, the school officials, the parents. And so if I could simply plead, I'll talk to Kim too. I think that I hope we're out of fire season this year, but let's get prepared for next year. And you spent a lot of time on this. I did too. We've got a whole packet of slides for a large presentation, but I think it's really important to be given and that we have a system. Dawn had a system of drawing in the parents to listen to a plan like this so that they could have a forum in which they would understand what's been planned and that they could discuss it and that they could put out what they want and what they don't like so that people would be educated and it would really happen.
Yeah, I think what I have come to understand from Roberta is that actually I saw kind of firsthand the first meeting that we had initially presented at, where this was initially introduced at Ormondale, was not well attended by parents at all. And there was a lot of work put forth on that. And so I think that is where we went back and said, okay, what are we missing? And so we're trying to figure out if different times of the day, if maybe accessing the parents through a different direction, what we need to do.
Yeah, I
So-
mean,
Selena,
having a meeting on a Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock just is not going to attract many parents.
So there, and this addresses what you asked, Craig, there was a meeting on September 20th on school wildfire, where Roberta and the fire marshal, new fire marshal, Kim Giuliacci, presented, and it was attended by about a dozen parents, myself, and some school board trustees. And afterwards, I was invited to join the PDSD's monthly meetings on emergency preparation. There wasn't someone from Woodside Fire at that. I would suggest y'all start
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
it's a
I
week.
wasn't able to make the
I
last
don't
one,
know.
but yeah,
You know, whether you or you and, Don or Kim.
we have
could attend.
discussed that.
Yeah, I think it would be
Absolutely.
really helpful. And, I think the meeting was good. A lot of serious issues were raised. I voiced some of what I shared here. But I want to put out there that the problem isn't the parents. We can't blame the parents in their busy lives and not digesting or even attending the meetings. The meeting, I think there is a plan to do another one in November. It should absolutely be recorded well. I mean, I did do a voice recording of it with my recorder, and I believe they recorded with an iPad, but the approach needs to be to create a screen share presentation that's shared asynchronously with all the parents. And it's a tough thing because the issues are so serious. And so addressing them is challenging. And there was some misunderstanding, some miscommunication, I think, that happened during the September 20th meeting, which I'm happy to work with both Roberta and Kim to help kind of clear up, because it's really critical to get this information presented accurately and clearly, and not avoid the challenging situation and emotional response that sort of we have.
Can I just ask, is there a plan for what the schools are going to do that's been adopted by the schools? And we're talking about how to communicate it to parents, or is there still not a decision and they're trying to get input from parents to make the decision? I'm getting a little confused.
The decision.
There is a plan in place. They have a very extensive plan. There's been a lot of work that's been put into it. And I completely agree that we need to not say that this is the parents' fault, but what we're struggling with is how do we get access, how do we get the attention of the parents more? Because everybody's on different schedules. And it wasn't just a morning session. I was talking about one that was done in an evening last year. I think when it was first introduced. For me, I'm like a broken record, right? The message just needs to happen all the time. And then what I think would be really good is the word of mouth. So it's the parents, that little handful of parents that start talking and going, wow, do you see what this implicates? Do you see what this says? And then they're talking to other parents and then the word spreads that way. But because we can tell people constantly, you need to do this, but it needs to come directly also from your peers.
So not only is there a plan, there's a slide deck for a presentation.
Yeah.
There was a whole program of how to entice everybody in. It was going to be a 6 o'clock meeting in Corte Madero's large room. Don had a way, there were supposed to be flyers handed out to all the kids. If the kids had their parents fill it out and bring it in, and they could have a raffle that they could win stuff at.
You're thinking of two different events. So the meeting was actually a school event that was already taking place. And then the other one was actually education within the schools.
So, and they were going to have fire engines there. I think we need to do something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
to kick off the first one is the most important. And thereafter, if we do it once a year, it can happen. But that gives the entire community a chance to understand what the present plan is and discuss it. So who do you think needs to make that happen?
Well, I think it's our prevention bureau. So our prevention bureau. So myself and Kim stepping in so I can speak with her, sit down with her and tell her what we discussed at the meeting.
I'd be happy to put up whatever it would be for an enticement.
I don't think she's going to need any enticing. I'm pretty sure she's going to be gung ho about it.
Okay, thank you. That's clearly a very important issue. It's a little bit out of scope for us, except for coordination and individual help, particularly from Randy, who I guess is now involved. Thank you all very much. Now, on to item 15. Is there any subcommittee reports that we haven't covered that people need to discuss? Okay, with that, next meeting is December 7th. Anybody not going to make that meeting? Mary Ann? Chris? Okay. We have two away. Okay. With that, Ray, you won't be here? We have three that won't be here. Okay. I think we'll still have a quorum. I'll send out, if I'm worried, I'll send out another email about making that quorum on that meeting. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. In favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks for the honey.